Well, thank you for joining us. First of all, Jessica, thank you for being with us, and congratulations on your new role as COO of the Houston Dynamo FC. How does that feel?
It's good. It's exciting. There is so much potential here, Alex. You know that. We know that. Our fans and our partners know that. That's why they've said, yes, we're going to see this through. So to be able to work closely with our ownership group and with our leadership group at the organization to see that potential fully realized is an incredible opportunity.
You talk about opportunities. How is the transition going and culture shift from when Mr. Ted Siegel purchased the team? I'm seeing it. I'm seeing not only on the field with the Dynamo, with the Dash, front office, everywhere. It's a process.
It is a process, and I think that's the thing that we're looking to educate people on as well, is that when a new owner comes in and purchases a team, more often than not, it is a new team. There's the opportunity to look at things differently, to make decisions based on different priorities, to invest in different areas, and that's what Ted has spent the last almost 2 years doing, and we are moving at warp speed to execute on a lot of those things, the stadium renovations, training facility upgrades, the new headquarters that we're building just on the other side of the stadium. So all of those things will be up and running next summer to really hit his 2-year mark of owning the club, and it's going to be fantastic.
Well, first question regarding Mr. Ted Siegel, and I asked this of Pat, is he giving you the resources you need to accomplish the job?
He is. He is giving me the resources that I need. He's giving the team, each respective team, the resources that they need. But most importantly, he's doing it in a very intentional and thoughtful way. He listens, he values the feedback of the people around you. He understands that Houston is a unique market. The opportunity here is unique. It's not copy and paste to what's worked in other clubs and other cities. I think that's what I appreciate the most. It's just the genuine respect and approach to, we're going to tailor what we need to do here to what in real time we're learning are the best opportunities to move forward.
Makes sense.
It's great.
And I'm glad to hear that you have that perspective. So let me bring up a couple of topics. Houston Dash, first of all, congratulations. And to get into the playoffs, year one, very exciting, headed in the right direction. I have to ask, what happened with Coach Juan Carlos?
Yes, it's a fair question because I know it's top of mind.
Yeah.
It is something that we were working on as far as him being able to be here more long term for a while behind the scenes, and we were committed to that, and he was committed to that. But I also think that at the end of the day, opportunities present themselves from other clubs in other areas, and I always encourage everybody I've ever worked with to say, have those conversations. Don't say no just because then you'll always wonder, what if I would have had that conversation? And you never want to be an organization that holds people back from things like that. So ultimately, Juan and his family decided that being with another organization was a better fit for what they needed as a family. We presented him with what I believe was matching all that he was asking for. But ultimately, again, I fully believe everything happens for a reason, and it just wasn't meant to be here long term. And that's a sad realization to have just because of how quickly it turned. But at the same time, it gives our GM, Alex Singer, the opportunity to do what none of us really thought we would be doing again, which is lead a head coaching search. Right. But she's already has that underway. The goal is to have someone in place by early January and have someone hopefully announced by the middle to end of December. So that's a very quick turnaround sitting here on November 8th. But we want to get it right, but we also realize that having a leader in place as soon as possible is really important.
Well, you got ahead of me on the timing on the new coach, so thank you for that. I almost had tears for different reasons during that playoff game. It's hitting me now. I never had so many people supporting the Dash in the stadium. How do we replicate that day in and day out, week in and week out?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It was. I'm so thankful that we had the opportunity to host a playoff game because we were very close to not having that opportunity and making the playoffs, but never having been able to be in front of your fans would have been a tricky dynamic for us to navigate. But what we need to do in this city is we need to raise the profile of the Dash for those that are aware. We need to introduce the Dash to those that aren't aware. The playoffs gave us a tremendous opportunity to do that. We will start the season strong. I have no doubt about that. It's 11 home games of the regular season. Every single one matters. We need as many people here for every single one of those. So we'll work on a lot of things this off season, storytelling about our players, the team, the league, what it means to support the Dash, who they are, why you should consider coming out if you haven't already, and hopefully that will pay off when we start playing games.
Let me ask you a question, and I heard you. I'll mention him because he's a friend of mine. I worked with him, Mr. Bart Berman.
Yes.
The question's this: are the media more receptive, finally, Jessica, to the Dash and to women's soccer? I'm a soccer guy. I have a club in Katy. I do everything every day to help the sport. I'm going to ask it this way: traditional journalists, sports journalists in this city, barely cared about soccer.
Yeah.
And I think, and I hope it's changing. I want to ask this in a professional and courteous way. Are minds being changed about the Dash?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I do. I think media coverage of women's sports as a whole is a growing area. We've seen it. We've seen TV ratings. We've seen coverage. We've seen it yield commercial dollars and partnership investments. So the intention of bringing this to the forefront, what the league is doing, and obviously here locally, we're fortunate to be one of only 12 clubs in the league, and that's Houston has an NWSL team, and there's tons of other cities that wish they had one or are actively trying to get that. So the media, in my short time here, I believe wholeheartedly that one, there's a lot going on in this city.
True.
Yes, there's a lot of great things going on in the city, but two, the sport of soccer is one that there's those that have followed passionately, deeply for their entire lives. They were raised with it. They know every single element about the game, and they are the diehards. And what I think we'll start to see, especially in the next 4 years as we approach the World Cup coming here, is that casual sports fans, who might not identify as soccer fans, but casual sports fans will realize the same reasons that they love supporting the NFL or the NBA or the MLB are where you can get behind a team, you can rally behind a team, there's competitive nature, it's entertaining. It's all true about our beautiful game too. There's a lot of things that I think make our game even more enticing. The speed of the game, the running clock, how tribal it is and fan-oriented it is. So that's the transition that across the league, really on the MLS side too, I think you see in these various markets is that you have to meet people where they are. There's, conversations that I have with reporters like you that I know, the game, you know it in and out.
And then pretend well.
Yeah, but there's some that don't, and that's okay too. Because there's such a history in this being the world's most popular sport, there's an approach that, we don't ever want to take, which is, well, you should be following us, or you should know about us, you should be covering us. No, if you're not, it just means we haven't given you a reason to yet, and we want to try to do that, whether that's through the community outreach that we do that might not necessarily be about the highlights, the X's and O's of what happens. Our player profiles, there's some different stories we've seen about our Dash players that aren't necessarily about what they're doing on the field, because maybe that audience that outlet is talking to doesn't necessarily, they're not paying attention to what happens on the field, but the human interest side of it is really interesting. So we're taking a very intentional look at that, making sure we provide that.
Jessica, quickly, the NWSL, is it in a good place? I know there's been a lot of problems, as the word I'll use. Do you see it heading in the right direction? I do. There are a lot of areas that we will improve on, and we are improving on across the league. There's a lot of communication between clubs. There's a lot of communication between the league office that's growing by the minute. Commissioner Jessica Berman has done a fantastic job. And with the leaders at the various clubs. The league is stronger than ever, but at the same time, acknowledging the work that still has to be done. Sure. And that's a weird juxtaposition to be in, where both things are true. The attendance numbers, the broadcast numbers, the commercial dollars are all year over year up in massive fashion, but we're also learning about these systemic failures that we've had in the last 10 years, and we can't push those aside. We need to address them and correct them while also understanding and acknowledging the opportunity. So it's in a very good place. With the best is 100% yet to come with the league. It's sobering, and I like the optimism. Today's announcement, the new era of Ben Olsen, what does that mean to you, and what part did you play in the process?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about the part. A lot of the way that I'll work in this new role with Pat is obviously to support what they're doing, but it's their job to build the roster and hire coaches and win games ultimately. So that piece of it, that he has a lot of people around him to support that. When we think about our fan experience and our partners and our media relations, that's where he and I will work closely together. So I'm thrilled for Ben to be joining our club. You look at his experience in the league, and it's hard to argue that we're not going to be better because he's here. I think his authenticity, we were talking about it earlier, his approach to the holistic view of an organization. It's not just coaches and players. There's support staff and business staff and media relations that go into the job of a head coach that are completely unrelated on paper to putting, fielding a team that's going to win a game. But they all are a part of the story, and to have someone like Ben that understands that will be huge.
Jessica, I don't know if you're a Billy Joel fan, and trying to segue into his song Pressure. I spoke to Pat about pressure. I spoke to Ben Olsen about pressure. You have pressure too. I mean, you're having to manage people. In the NWSL, you're managing expectations and growth. Now in your COO role in general with the organization. How do you handle your role and the pressure that comes with, hey, we want to grow this business?
Yes, we do. And the pressure is a privilege. That's my view on it. I'm very fortunate to be able to lead this group of people, very talented, diverse staff that in some ways have been looking to do things differently, which that's part of it, is that we are kind of taking a step back as an organization and realizing there's things we need to do differently, and that's not a knock on anything that's happened here previously. That history makes us who we are, but we need to start there and work from there. So I love the opportunity. I love the pressure. I seek challenges in my life, personally and professionally, and I like having to fight for things and be that gritty attitude that we talk about. I think embodies both clubs.
Making decisions can be difficult, especially when it affects people. And any new organization, new administration, there has to be change in many ways. How do you deal with that? I mean, there's some people that cannot make decisions, and thus they can't be maybe often in a leadership role.
Change is very hard for some. For others, it's exciting. And I think that's the balance, is just understanding you got to meet people where they are. And especially continued and sustained change, which is what we need, is going to shake some individuals. And I think that's where the conversations of just having open lines of communication, making sure people understand the why, what are we trying to do here, what is the potential, and how do we get there, what does success look like? Because if we don't know what success looks like, then we will appear to be changing things for the sake of just changing them. So it's people first, and that starts with the individuals that represent our club. So all of our staff, our players, if they are bought into what we are doing, then every interaction with a media member, with fans, with partners in the community, you can tell. You can go places where you can feel the pride that somebody has working there, and we want to make sure everybody has that in every interaction. And the only way they do that is if they know the bigger picture.
That's really exciting. To close, the World Cup is coming, Men's World Cup in Qatar, Women's World Cup next year, and you mentioned it, 2026, Houston. We're right now at PNC Stadium, where I'm sure some World Cup teams, national teams, will be training and preparing for matches. What is that? You throw that into the mix of your role now in Houston at this moment. Enrique and I, and we talk about, we're privileged to have this moment because it's very exciting for our sport.
It is, and I think that's where the sport and the popularity of the sport obviously comes to life. These are world-class athletes representing countries across the world that are coming to our city, obviously, in several years, but they're on our televisions, here very soon, in a few weeks on the men's side, and next summer on the women's side. Every opportunity that we have to remind people that these world-class athletes are playing here in Houston every weekend, on the men's and the women's side for the Dynamo and the Dash, and across the leagues in the MLS and the NWSL, there are the opportunity to watch this caliber of performance and professionalism on a regular basis. You don't have to wait 4 years or 2 years for each World Cup. You can do that here in downtown Houston on a regular basis.
Héctor Herrera's here.
Yeah, he's here. He's here, and we want as many people as possible to come support him. And obviously, on the women's side, we have really the best in the world in the NWSL. I believe that wholeheartedly. The players talk about it a lot. The competitive parity, and I think the more that we see that, especially next summer, that the World Cup will happen in the middle of the season, which is a unique opportunity,
right.
And it will just catapult the attention, I think, especially with the casual fans that we talked about earlier, on those that might start paying a little bit more attention to this game.
One more, and I won't wear you down,
Yeah.
I promise. The new deal, MLS with Apple TV+. We've debated on our show, listen, short term, some people might be ruffled, but I think long term, this is my personal opinion, and this gentleman here to my left disagrees sometimes. This is where it's at. The next generation will follow it. It's a great opportunity, I believe, for the league, for MLS.
It is. It is a incredible opportunity. I think that fans will start to realize the benefits of a deal like this with Apple, where the accessibility is the thing we hear most about on the NWSL side. I would watch the games if I knew where they were, or when they were, or how I could watch them. We need to make it simpler, and the MLS and Apple have done that, and it will change the narrative. It will change the trajectory of the league. The viewing experience will be much more streamlined because it'll be produced obviously in the same way, just like it is in other leagues across the board. And there's ways that we can make it feel more authentic to our home, obviously. But no, it's going to just open a whole lot of doors commercially and fan engagement wise that were there before, but not in the same way when you have a streaming deal like this.
Jessica, it's always an honor to speak with you. You've always been there for us, have been there for us. Congratulations on your new role. And I sense and I feel that even though there's been some years here that maybe the organization hasn't performed, that things are turning around. So congratulations and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex.
Awesome.